Hey, welcome back to OnyxPathCon. Oh, well, maybe you never left. I don't know. I'm back at OnyxPathCon now. This is our Exalted Exploring the Realm panel, although it's probably going to be, exploring creation because the realm is this big compared to creation. Creation's gigantic. Maybe things outside of creation. We don't talk about Onyxonia. Who fucking knows? This panel is 18 plus. You can curse. I don't care what anybody else tells me. My name is Dixie Cochran. I am the in-house developer for Exalted and Chronicles of Darkness. I am kind of the project lead on Exalted Essence that we have going on right now. And with me are some of the developers that make Exalted as amazing as it is. So if you want to introduce yourself, we have Eric Minton, one of the lead developers.
Hello, I'm Eric. I am one of the lead developers. Anything else you want?
Just whatever you want to say. This is your time, Eric.
Oh, geez, you're putting me on the spot here.
You're not saying anything if you don't want to. You can just be quiet.
I'll just be here and I don't know, gay and gamery and just waiting for the next thing.
So like the entire Exalted crew except for like 5 people. All right. Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren Roy. My pronouns are she, her. I am one of the writers and developers on Exalted.
Elliott, who is being perceived at this very moment by many people.
I am being perceived even as we speak. My name is Elliott Freeman. I guess I'm the most recent dev.
Yes. Yeah.
So I am a co-developer on Exigence Out of the Ashes, along with Eric and the imperceptible Robert Vance.
And you've been writing on things for a while.
Yeah, I've been writing Exalted for a while, and I've just somehow made the cut, apparently.
You're a developer. It's the developer chat. And then we have, of course, the indomitable Neall Raemonn Price, who I had to say for last because he will talk for 10 minutes now.
What? No, I won't. My name is Neall Raemonn Price. I'm a developer for Exalted Essence and Crucible of Ashes, which is the Exalted Third Edition. What did I say? Crucible of Ashes?
Yes.
That's because Elliott said out of the Crucible, Exalted Crucible of Legends, the Storytellers companion for Exalted Third Edition. Like Eric, I've been a writer since mid-second edition or so. And I've been a fan, like many people, since first edition. And next month will be our Exalted versary.
I'm super excited this is happening right around the Exalted 20-year anniversary. We didn't plan that for the Essence drop or for this convention. But the limited edition released in June of 2001. And then the actual regular core book released in July. So it's kind of a 20th anniversary celebration, too. Let's have fun with that. Although, third edition, best edition. So we have a lot of projects going on right now, as everybody knows. I have said this many times, and I'm going to say it right now before we get questions in the chat. 2020 sucked for our team. I've said it on podcasts everywhere. We have team members, like important team members who have been working 60 to 80 hour work weeks, who have been doing other people's jobs, who have been hit by illness, this, that, and the other. So we know a few things are a little farther behind than we'd like them to be. When we slated Exigence to be done last spring, we didn't know that we probably should have known that it was our most demanding book mechanically, but also we didn't know all this was going to happen, all the past 18 months. So yeah, we are a little behind on some stuff, but now it's all moving ahead. And that's why I am so excited to have this panel, because I want to talk about things that are moving ahead. So probably the first one we should talk about is Exigence, because I know a lot of people just saw that get through approvals. And no, we're not announcing when the Kickstarter is. We will announce that like the week before, as always. It's not going to be right after Essence, because we have A, other Kickstarters to get through, and B, we don't want to take all the Exalted fandom's money over a 2-month period, because that seems mean.
We need to let them build the funds back up, right?
Yeah. So for those who might not be as familiar, Elliott, Eric, do y'all want to kind of talk about Exigence and what they are and where they came from? And which I guess could be infinite, so don't have to list all of the places they could come from.
I'm going to make Elliott do the work here.
Oh dear, oh come on, seniors first.
Seniors?
No, in terms of how long they've been with them.
Keep digging.
Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Exigence being introduced in third edition, and then Elliott can tell us a little bit about the current book. Because they were in the core.
The exigents are one of the varieties of Exalted that were added in 3rd edition. They provide a spectrum of options for players and storytellers because they are exalted of like smaller gods, gods of wind and sea and cities and what all else. And in the setting, they provide not so much in the setting, but definitely like from a player and storyteller perspective, they give you options to have Exalted that don't fit any of the usual categories. If you want to have an Exalt that has, I don't know, disease powers or money powers or something, then instead of having to homebrew an entire new concept, this is all prepackaged for you as something you can work from. And more importantly, the Exigence book is something of a design kit for new Exalt types, which is something that people have wanted for a long time. And it's also something that's going to be very helpful going forward because it's going to take us a few years to get to things like abyssals and infernals and alchemicals. And you should be able to do a lot of the work yourself with homebrew to make your own versions using the Exigence template.
Yeah, there's been a lot of joke behind the scenes that like if you get Essence and Exigence, that's all you need to homebrew pretty much whatever the hell you want. With either rule set. Because it's like that's the point. Like that's the point of Exigence is you are making your own Exalt. I always think of the dragon character from Spirited Away. I just forgot his name. Hapu?
Haku.
Haku. I always think of him as a good example of like a god that might create an Exigent because he's the god of like that river. Like he's not the god of rivers. He's the god of that river. And so like he might make an Exigent to, be the protector of that river. Which is very, very cool to me because it's not, I don't know. I just like the idea of like one god being like, I'm not the most powerful god, but I really need help right now. Can you, what if I gave you some of this? So Elliott, we brought you on to kind of help bring Exigence over the finish line because, I mean, if you look at the list of things we have going on for Exalted, our devs have been bogged down as hell. And like I said, 2020 sucked. I can't say enough how much 2020 has sucked for us. And as far as I'm concerned, it's still 2020. Like Eric is literally on break at work right now and will go back to work at 9 p.m.
Yes.
So that's how we're going still. So Elliott, what was it like when you came on to kind of like get onboarded into a project that had already been so messed with, touched?
I mean, it's definitely an interesting orientation to the whole dev process.
Yeah.
A little bit trial by fire, but also giving room to just kind of mess around and find out in terms of how it goes. So Eric and Vance have both been great about like letting me bounce things off of them and giving me feedback and kind of holding me throughout the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
Exigence is a challenging book, I think. And you
Yes.
said before, like mechanically, it's very involved. It's got a lot of moving parts because we have, 4 types of Exigence that we're giving samples for,
Mm-hmm.
plus some guidance on some apocryphal optional Exalts, plus actually having to include the guideline that is basically Vance's mind in a box in terms of how to make charms.
You heard it here, folks. We have packaged Vance's brain. They said it couldn't be done, but here we are.
I don't think it's a secret that 3rd edition is a very robust and rigorous system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of folks can feel rightly intimidated. One of the biggest things that I really liked getting to do in Exigence is just making sure that lots of stuff there is good on its own, but works as a really nice like introduction to people. It's an invitation over and over again to get people to actually, try it and be like, yes, I can do this. I can write my own Exalt, or I can make some new charms for this guy. It's very much like an incitement.
Right. So you mentioned the 4 types that you put in there as examples. Can we go ahead and ask what those are?
So we have Straw Maiden Janice, who is in many ways our iconic Exigent.
Yeah, she's in the core, so we used her in Essence as well as an example. So
well, because she's the best.
She's pretty great.
Amazing.
Also, I get to decide what her face looked like.
You did. And
Because you
picked
only
a
see
good
her
one.
from behind in the core.
Yes.
Not in like a weird way, y'all. Like she's like facing down some shit. She's cool.
We actually have that same thing with the architect that we see in the core. We only see the back of her head, and that is Ravana Quinn, who is our signature architect, which are the chosen of Wunja, the god of cities, in joint work with specific city fathers. So you can have architects for Sijan or Nexus or Great Forks or any of the other cool places that you've ever wanted to, really give their own hero in creation.
Mahalanka.
Yeah. Oh, maybe not Mahalanka.
That's a power move right there.
I can only imagine what the exigence was.
I only had to bring that up because in the game we're playing on Tuesdays right now, we have a brand new storyteller, which is cool because he's running Essence, and it's like, oh, it's how a brand new storyteller can handle it. And we get to session 3, and he's like, you gotta go to Mahalanka, and I'm like, do you know who's in charge of Mahalanka? I was like, I'm not sure we want to go to Mahalanka. Like that's not a good, like they eat babies. All right, here we are.
She only eats babies once in a while.
True. But yeah,
Baby
so
has been deprecated.
I mean, yeah, it's just funny. It's like one of those funny
she'll still eat a baby, just not on the reg.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what are the other 2 types you have, Elliott?
We have the Sovereigns, who are my precious glam rock babies. And they are empowered by a god named Cantata of the Depths, along with a mysterious pool of blood from another nameless greater god that he kind of cheated and used to supercharge his sovereigns, possibly to ill effect.
I'm only playing one Exalt type from here on out, and it's Glamrock Blood Gods.
So they've got their whole setting element with the city of Ulu Iru. They're probably one of like the biggest groups of exigents in the setting because there is more than one sovereign.
Right.
And then the last one is the puppeteer, who we have been fairly quiet about, but she is the chosen. It's a good place. Yeah, she is the chosen of a spidery puppet god. With all of the fun manipulation and wiles that entails.
That's awesome. That sounds very cool. That's exciting. I'm so excited for Exigence. So that will definitely be a Kickstarter book. We don't know when exactly. And of course, it will probably have a companion. The companion book might just be Catemians because we haven't actually figured all that out yet. So
I have a list.
I know you do. It is always so funny. I just a little behind the scenes thing. Every now and then, like Vance or Eric will start talking about some splat that's like years out, and I'm like, "How do you know this?" They're like, "It's in our heads." And I'm like, "So you can't leave. You have to work here forever. Like, please don't leave me because I would just be lost." So I know another thing people have been anticipating pretty heavily are the collections for Adversaries and 100 Devils, which Lauren has been helping out Megan Fitzgerald with. So what do you want to say about those? I know when we talked earlier today, you had like an adversary left or a devil or
an adversary. Yep.
All right, because devils is in our direction now, right?
Yeah. So I'm excited to see those come out because there are so many cool things. I know not all of them ended up as the monthly releases.
There are a lot that weren't monthly releases. Like the full book is going to have so much additional stuff.
Yes. And just cool, like it runs the gamut from, some sort of mundane creatures that you'll have in your games to like really weird things that you wouldn't even I'm trying to think about them without like going into my folder, so I'm not clicking around, but like we had some of our writers just did some super cool things that I'm excited for everybody to get to play with and throw their exalts up against.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of like the point, right? Like we want you to have more interesting things to throw your exalts against.
Yep.
Because everyone needs new stuff to play around with.
Yeah, so like creatures out of the wild and, brooding. I'm trying to remember the way we described it in the spreadsheet, but we definitely have like a romantic kind of death knight who.
Oh, is that the vampire one?
There's also the vampire one.
Oh, there's more than one.
There's of course there are many brooding characters because
There
why
is-
not? But
So when I joined the team, Megan shared the spreadsheets with me for 100 Devils and Adversaries. And there's one that's like a vampire hungry ghost character, and his name on the spreadsheet is Tepit Vlad. And then in parentheses it says, "Note to Dixie, he is
Not
not
really
actually
his
called this." So she definitely knew I was gonna clock that and was like, "It's a joke.
this
It's fine."
placeholder name, we promise.
Yeah, sorry about that. Is there any specific adversary or devil that you're particularly excited for people to see that they might not have seen yet?
Oh, that's a good question. So hold on. You know what the heck? I will cheat. I have
it
a
open
folder
right
in front
now.
of me. My Exalted folder is called Exalted What? Because when I was first hired to work on it, I was like, wait, I'm working on what now?
I mean, I'm looking forward to Lady Midnight, which
Yes,
you wrote.
I did write Lady.
That's a lich servant of Mask of Winters.
Oh, what does she do? Hold on. It's been a while since I've looked at her. I know, dead air. It's terrible.
Everyone stare at Lauren while she scrolls through her feed.
No.
Lauren, you're being perceived.
Oh no, I've failed all of my roles. Yeah, she's in Great Forks. And she's kind of, if I remember correctly, she has sort of set up shop there and is maybe taking credit for some stuff that she didn't actually do. So she's got some people following her around, not quite worshiping her. She's not a god. But she's not letting anyone know that she's not. Why tell them that if they're gonna believe it? That's
I have another question for you on adversaries. Are these Scarlet Egg players based on that one episode of Avatar?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I feel like they almost have to be. There's a group of like fake dragon-blooded performers.
Yes. They're out in like the scavenger lands, are out in the threshold somewhere, and yeah, that's their entire thing. Is they're like this troupe that does these shows with these amazing dragon-blooded prowess, and they let people believe that they're dragon-blooded, and they're totally not. And they really hope they don't run into any dragon-blooded who will be like, no.
I love that. Well, if you want to think about some more things you want to spoil or share, I'm going to ask Neall about Crucible of Legend. Because everyone wants to know what's going on with that. Famously, there is no storytelling chapter in the Exalted Third Core. And so our name for the channel that is working on Crucible is Chapter 7, isn't it? 7?
Yep.
Yeah. So Neall, I know that you and Monica have been developing that with, of course, we have a lot of guidance from Eric and Vance, because anything that we haven't released yet, we have to go, how are we doing this in 3rd edition? So what's that been like, and what kind of advice are you including?
So as Elliott said before, very famously, Exalted is a very robust system, and so we wanted to give players and storytellers both actually a lot of options about how to adjust the system on the fly, suggest alternate types of rules that they could use if they feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Like there's a milestone-based XP system, and then there's a flat XP system as well in there. But there's also myriads of ways to adjust combat mechanics because, again, very famously, the it's very hard. I'm sure Lauren will back me up on this, to design antagonists for the Exalted, because if you just go off a stat block, it's entirely possible that just your Dawn or your Zenith or whatever will just wreck whatever's in front of you. So we wanted to give storytellers a couple options to adjust that sort of thing on the fly. So it's still a fight, maybe a little less one-sided than it was before. And we give advice on how to run a wild hunt for every type of exalts. And then we give advice on how to run the sort of the game itself and the setting itself, when we talk about safety mechanisms and how to do a session 0 and how to address slavery and imperialism in Exalted. Pro tip, don't glorify them.
Common sense pro tip.
Yeah. You would think it would be common sense, but it is not. And then lastly, the last chapter is about the 10 different types of exalts. It was the most difficult chapter to get through because we needed to talk about their play styles and talk about their play styles for Exalts that haven't been released yet and haven't been fully fleshed out in their books. And I mean, I don't think I'm shocking anyone by saying that, Eric and Vance and myself and Lauren and Megan Fitzgerald and Elliott and some of the other devs have been working for years on fleshing out these Exalted and fleshing out their themes. But as a developer, I also know that, things change when the rubber meets the road. And when you write the core book itself, things change a little bit. So trying to anticipate some of those changes and trying to make it as future-proof as possible was definitely a big goal of ours. But more than that, I really wanted, going into that book, for storytellers to be able to use the other types of Exalted in their game, even if they didn't have mechanics for them yet. I've heard so many people be like, well, I don't want to use the Gatimians in a game because I don't know what their deal is, and I don't know what the War in Heaven's deal is. Or I'm waiting to see how Sidereals change in 3rd edition to really include them. And, through various circumstances, it's been a little while, and those books aren't out yet. And
All
we
those
wanted to
books
give.
take a million years to make.
Yeah, no, that's
They're
why.
big books.
That's why. And so we wanted to give players and storytellers something that tied them over, and something that they could immediately start using these awesome characters in their game.
Mm-hmm. There's also a few alternative rule sets, I think, for a couple of systems in there.
Oh yeah, no,
Like
tons of alternate
updates.
rules.
Yeah. So yeah, let's give you a lot of advice for playing the game and for running the game, and like Neall said, safety tools, things like that. So that's all really exciting. The other thing that we have released recently is the backer copy of Heirs to the Shogunate, which I know we were very excited. We didn't plan for it to be released on Essence Kickstarter launch day, but it came back from Paradox that morning. So we said, all right, I guess they're getting double dose of Exalted today. That said, I've been seeing a lot of conversation in the Dragon Blooded channel on the fan cord and other places. How do you feel, Eric, about how that's going over? Because I think it's a really great book.
It's one of the best books we've ever done.
Yeah.
People seem to like everything they're reading about it, so that's good. If people who are watching this see things about it they don't like, there is a handy errata forum to be found online for you to post your disagreements.
That I'm probably going to shut down at the end of this weekend, so get them in. If anybody else... I need you to settle something for me, Eric.
I'll see what I can do.
Why is Catholic Kanan a matriarch?
Because matriarch is the title for the leader of a great house.
So it's kind of like how women can be princes of the earth?
Very much so.
Oh, hey, look at that. Quit putting it in the errata.
Dixie, I adore you.
I had to delete it 10 times out of the Essence errata. Like, everybody's like, Catholic Kanan uses he, him pronoun as a matriarch. And it's like, yes.
Yeah.
That's on purpose.
Yeah, in the War in the West, he becomes Empress Kanan. And
that's their title.
Working as intended.
That's his title.
Yeah. So I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. That's how Exalted works. I don't care if it doesn't conform to your English language rules.
You wanna fight him about it? He's an Essence 5 fire aspect with a Grand Diclave. So,
yeah, have fun with that.
Yeah.
you are an extra to Catholic Kanan, to
Yes.
matriarch Kanan, Empress.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, but no. What in Heirs are you excited for everybody to finally see?
In Heirs, wow,
Yeah.
it's so full of things.
I know.
I mean, and it's even been upgraded since the initial backer release that came out. How long ago has it been? So long.
Oh, when we dropped the text because COVID?
Yeah.
It's been like a year.
Yeah.
Like close to it. And yes, I know a lot has changed. Like I was the one who input all of your proofing comments, and like I got to really kind of look through that, and I was like, this is great. Like I love this book.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm of course like, it's not my book. I mean, we have a whole bunch of writers who have done amazing work, and of course Vance was on it as well, and Vance does amazing work. But yeah, it's a great book, and it's got all sorts of wonderful bits of side material on every aspect of Dragonblade society and creation.
Aspect.
Womp womp. But yeah,
LOL.
it's got a whole bunch of new cadet houses for the dynasty, for like all those little side factions. It's got more information on the great secondary school and a bunch of little ones. So when you want to run that high school game set in the Scarlet Realm, you've got information.
I love the idea of running a cadet house game. I think that'd be really fun. Just like a bunch of angsty teens with magic powers. I love angsty teens with powers. It's a great subset of literature. Like, I just want to run the Magician's campaign, but it's cadet house dragon blooded.
Angsty Teens with Powers is the name of our
Elliott
next
just
game
lost
line,
his
isn't it?
shit. Sorry, go ahead, Eric. What was that?
Angsty Teens with Powers is the name of our next game line, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the name of most of our game lines already. We don't need to like.
Teenager, the Angstening?
Yeah. I don't have to retcon any of our games for that. Like, that's just Chronicles games. You're missing a very important comma in that, Sean. I really need in the chat. I need you to add a comment to that phrase. Okay, so we have those. I have my ClickUp open so I can see all the things we're working on. We're also working on the Mini-Face Strangers, the Lunar's Companion. That's Lauren and Eric developing that.
Oh, yeah, Lauren has been such an amazing help here.
So, you want to talk a little about Mini-Face Strangers and what we're going to see in there to expand on Lunars?
Oof. Well, we've got so many charms, so many charms. But also, we've got information on the Shadowfang Vanguard, which is a fun little splinter faction of the Silver Pact, which is all about, hey, maybe we should be more about organization and structure and like people being in charge, so we know who does what. And there's a little bit of friction there, and that should provide a lot of opportunity for like new internal political dilemmas and character options. And we've got some new locations like Mount Namas, which is off the Dreaming Sea, and it's got some cool lunar stuff going on around it, and it's a lunar-run Shadowland, which is kind of neat.
That's awesome.
And it also lets you kind of play up, there's one of the lunars on the mountain wants to attack Prasad. One of them wants to kind of use Prasad against the realm. And it's that friction between the two of them who've been friends for centuries and been working together for so long. And here's this splinter between the two of them that is starting to kind of have this ripple effect out.
And we also have a bunch of stuff on lunar spirits, which is kind of neat, because it's not something that's really been discussed before, and they get to be weird and spooky. And also, we just haven't talked much about gods at all, really, in any edition. Like, we talk about individual gods all the time, but we haven't gone into depth about things like spirit courts. And we've got a couple of spirit courts written up here. And it's hopefully dipping a toe in the water because we want to discuss this further in future books. And this will give people a taste of what we're looking to do. That's
awesome. That's very, very cool. I know that people were, from the comments I saw, people were pretty astounded and impressed by Lunars and how much we changed from earlier editions. Every now and then somebody will pop into the Exalted Discord. I'm disappearing right now. I'm a lunar. I'm a changing moon. I can't help it. But yeah, like people are pretty astounded by some of the changes that we made in a good way. Because a lot of people went from being like, Lunars were my least favorite splat to being like, Lunars are the best thing ever. I want to play nothing but Lunars forever. So I'm really, really, really happy with the team for all the decisions that y'all made. I know that like, by the time I came on, you were already talking about Lunars. You already kind of figured out what you wanted to do with it. And so I just kind of was like, cool, do your thing. Enjoy the thing you're doing. Mostly because whenever I did see you talking about it, you were like, well, we're going to get rid of, the term barbarian. We're going to give them their own culture. Or we're going to make Luna gender fluid. We're going to like do all these things. And I was like, go, keep doing that. Keep making it more inclusive and better. You know what, Ian, in the chat? I agree with you. Lunars 3E is the Requiem 2E of Exalted. Because I love Lunars 3 so much. And I don't like shapeshifting games for the most part. Like if you ask, like my least favorite World of Darkness game is probably Werewolf. It's just not for me. That's fine if it's for you. I don't care. Enjoy your game. But if it's not for me, I don't want to be a wolf person. But then Lunars is like, but what if bat person? What if ferret person? What if moth person? And I'm like, yes. So that's super, super exciting. I cannot wait for Mini-Face Strangers to come out. Yeah.
Working on it. Working.
Oh,
I know. We of course also have Across the Eight Directions. Everybody kind of knows what that's about. It's a guide to creation on some level. Eric, do you want to expand on that a little bit since we're working on that?
It is a painfully baroquely overstuffed volume full of information on all sorts of locations throughout creation. About half of them are old familiar places from first and second edition. About half of them are new places that we have created that were either in the core book or have been in books that came along later that we're going to be expanding on, or are entirely new to Across the Eight Directions itself. And we're also going to cover, basic information about what it's like in the north or the east or the south or whatever, and generally talk about what life is like in creation, astronomy and science and culture, and just try and provide all the materials that you need to make creation like a vibrant place that you can actually play games in.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is like you can do creation as if it's a sandbox and just kind of make whatever you want, but it's also cool to have pre-made places for people to go like, oh, I will set my game here, because like I'm not super creative when it comes to thinking of like a brand new culture. So if someone's like, here is this culture in the southeast, I'm like, thank you, I will take it and I will put it in my game.
One of the cool things I think it does too is gives you, there's definitely a genre feel to some of the areas, where you can have like a Wild West kind of town, or a Lovecraftian kind of horror town that lets you, because that's one of the cool things to me about Exalted is just how many different kinds of stories you can play there. And I feel like Eight Directions really gives that more to put in your toolbox for that. If you want to run a horror game, if you want to run a romance game, if you want to run swashbuckling adventure, you've got all of that right in there.
I think everyone should run an Exalted romance game, especially considering that the Discord is all about making people kiss.
Yep.
That's kind of all they ever talk about. It's how they want to make people kiss. No kiss.
And something we tried to expand upon here from stuff we've done with locations in places like the Realm and Lunars is that we're trying to give each of these locations neighbors. So they're not just like floating off in the middle of the wilderness by themselves, but they have trade partners and allies and enemies and such like, which gives you a lot more texture, which gives you like opportunities to do this sort of politics and war stuff without having to make up a whole bunch of additional stuff. And of course, if you want to have your own places, they can be neighbors of these places and fit into these larger frameworks.
That's super cool.
Yeah, if you want to hear some Exalted first edition trivia, if you read the Making of Exalted book, Grabowski kind of offhandedly mentions, and he later kind of confirmed that every location in the original first edition core book was actually 10 times closer together, and they just enlarged the distances by an order of magnitude at the last moment. And Scavenger Sons, which is one of the very first edition supplements, never actually got the memo. So that's why you have like Look Shy having an opinion on what Great Forks is doing. And it's like, they're like 1,000 miles apart. Like, they don't care. Like, and so
I mean, I've got an opinion of what the Midwest is doing, so.
Well, okay, fine. But
I also have the internet.
Yes.
The earlier book Time of Tumult, you could see Nexus from the lab.
Yeah,
right.
And it's like, no. So that still kind of carried into second edition, and third edition really is just like, no, these places are actually thousands of miles apart. Like, here are their actual neighbors that they deal with on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the map got blown up. The map that is wonderfully behind Elliott right now. That is ludicrously large. I almost used that as my background, so I'm lucky we didn't do an accidental twin thing at the very end here. Let's see, what else we got coming out? We got so many games. There's so many games. They're all games, I guess. So many books. I guess I will talk very briefly about Exalted Essence. I don't want to make like an Essence panel, clearly, because I want this to be a celebration of everything. Also, if you haven't checked out some of the fiction that's come out recently and it's upcoming, please do. Laura wrote an excellent novella that I'm working on trying to get out of my pipeline. It just wasn't priority right away. James Huggins has written an amazing novella called Silence of Our Ancestors. And one of our writers, Ray Cole, has recently put her book, The Road to Champor, on the Storytellers Vault. And I also really like that one. So I would check that out, especially if you were the Freedom Stone fan back in the day. So yeah, I mean, I think she's planning to continue working on those, which is exciting. But of course, right now, I'd be neglectful if I didn't spend a couple minutes talking about that we do have Exalted Essence on Kickstarter right this second. Everyone here was on the initial team. Eric had to leave the writing team, but he was still on the team in spirit and in the Slack for Essence. Turns out that when you're already developing like 3 books and working the equivalent of 3 full-time jobs, giving you word count on a book was a bad idea. We just wanted you to be there. But yeah, so we have Essence going on right now. We are like $300 away from a stretch goal, which is super exciting.
Woo-hoo.
And also, I think we're currently counting down to a brand new tier for pledging being unlocked at 9 p.m., which is in 21 minutes. That's the tier that will allow you to pledge to convert any charm from previous editions to Essence. We do have the right to refuse if it's terrible, and if you request something from Scroll of Fall of Darkness, I will come to your house and take your books away.
What about
Zeal?
Zeal, Dixie?
Dixie's coming to your houses and taking your books away.
I know where all of you live. I have the spreadsheet of addresses.
I love that we said it at the same
I'm
time.
so mad right now. I am super pleased with how the Essence Kickstarter is going. For anyone that isn't aware, Exalted Essence is a streamlined version of the rules to be used with 3E. We present very limited setting information in the book. It's definitely an edition, not an edition, as I like to say all the time. A lot of people are like, oh, is it 3.5? It's like, no, it's 3E supplement. Because there are people like me who are not good at parsing Exalted rules. I love that they exist, and I love that Vance can write 100,000 words of them in like a couple months, because that's weird. But I have trouble parsing them and remembering what things like WP stand for when I'm looking at charms. So we want to do a slightly streamlined version just to get some new players in. I know a lot of folks have come into role-playing in the past 5-10 years because of D&D 5e and Critical Role and things like that. And so we wanted to introduce those people to creation, because creation's really cool, and you can do a lot of stuff in there that you can't do in D&D. There's a lot of different cultural elements in there that aren't in D&D. And also, sometimes you want to play like a level 20 character out the gate and then get better. Which is what I feel like when I play Exalted. I feel like I'm playing a character that I should have been playing for 2 years to get to this level. So we work on Exalted Essence. The developers were Neall here and Monica Specca, who sadly couldn't join us tonight. And then I kind of the project overseer. Lauren wrote on it. Elliott wrote on it. I think Elliott was the one who did a really good job on charm names and stuff. And then we kind of told everybody to look at his draft.
Yep.
You're like, look at what Elliott did.
Working on my charms. Elliott's draft open.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Because one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that every charm name, explained what it did, but still sounded exalted. So we didn't want like Fireball, but like Glorious Exalted Bolt. Sure, that's a different charm for other people, but it sounds like it's a Fireball.
It was
a poison bolt.
It was a tough needle to thread sometimes, because I was in the unusual position of being like the really conservative voice on the team, being like, no, the name should be Baroque and flowery, and we should hew as closely to the charms in 1st and 2nd and 3rd edition as possible. And Dixie was like, no, they need to explain what they do. So, Glorious Chosen Bolt is a compromise to that degree.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I initially was saying things like, oh, it should just be called like Poison, and Monica and Neall were like, no, it's Exalted, you can't do that. And I was like, okay.
You can't do that.
Right, but like I learned. We talked to each other.
Yeah. Tell them about craft, Dixie.
I didn't understand why we had to have a craft section, because I have never played a game in which crafting was a big deal. But apparently it is for some Exalted players, and apparently there are entire craft-focused characters, and now I know that.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have a craft system, expertly written by Megan Fitzgerald. The entire team on this was so fantastic. Eric and Vance have given us amazing input, because we were coming to them constantly like, what are the themes for Infernals in this edition? And they were like, we were like, no, we need to know. But usually they were just right there with an answer, just like, oh, you've already thought about this. And I'm like, of course you have, because Infernals are 7 years out or whatever.
Yeah, there's a couple hiccups in the manuscript right now, because as I often kind of opine, I have been a fan of Exalted since the 1st edition. So is Monica, and we're holding 3 editions worth of stuff in our heads. And
Most
so,
of the team is, honestly.
Yeah,
like,
most of the
very
team
few
is.
people are new to third. Most of them are at
Yeah.
least second fans.
But for the folks being like, well, Luna uses they them pronouns in third edition Lunars, but she her pronouns in Essence, and I'm like, it's not a setting thing. It will get changed. It's just a little hiccup because I glossed over it. So
Yeah, it is not a retcon. Like, it's just we goofed. It's okay, it happens. I will say I haven't told anybody else the number on this yet, but we have a Kickstarter comment feedback form. And as of earlier today, when I started going through it to remove duplicates, there were 495 discrete comments. 15 of them were about milestones. 8 of them were about Luna having she/her pronouns. At least 9 of them were about Catholic Canon being a matriarch. So I am deleting quite a few of them. But yeah, I know. So we do have a couple of questions, and we got about 15 minutes left. I know that Eric specifically has a hard out. If you have any questions or things that aren't Essence, that would also be nice. But Essence, I understand, is the thing right now because it's in the middle of the Kickstarter. So Ardric asks, will there be rules in Essence for converting additional charms? Yes, it is the final chapter, or it is the appendix, and will be released with Kickstarter manuscript. So you will see that soon. In Crucible of Legends, will the new Exalt types present in Essence be expanded upon? Neall?
Yes, they will. We put in a lot of work on what Gatimians look like, and a lot of work on what what the War in Heaven and their sort of play style is. We wanted to give just a brief, like, paragraph or a couple paragraphs worth overview of what all of the major factions in the setting are doing and what their secret goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's in there, so storytellers can pick them up and read them. They're not going to be expanded upon too much, but you will see some Gatimian QCs.
That'll be helpful. That's very cool. Will the unlocked stretch goal adventures be in the companion book? No, the stretch goal adventures, the way that I would like to do it is release a jumpstart, all 3 adventures separately as PDFs, and then release them compiled into one book, like one adventure book, either with a jumpstart or without. I'd like to do like a 3 adventure book, which is what we've done for other games before, that take you through 3 different power levels of play. So like when I did the one for Monarchies of Mal for Pugmire, it was for level 1, 3, and 5 characters. So this would be for Essence 1, 3, and 5 characters most likely. But they would all be connected. Because it's a lot easier to... I saw Eric's face. It's a lot easier to get to Essence 5 in Essence than it is in 3 core. Although we also have advice for lengthening or shortening that time if you want to. If you want to spend years getting to Essence 5, go for it. If you want to get to Essence 5 in 3 months, have fun. Iceblade asks, this is for Eric, what was the biggest change you had to make in Across the 8 Directions as far as a creational retcon, as it were?
Ooh,
I know that I, for instance, wrote a short piece for it that was a major retcon, which was the Tia.
which is what?
The Tia?
Oh, please talk about it.
I don't remember all of it. It's been a while since I wrote that. The Tia were what were they? An all-women pirate group?
All women sailing pirates in the West.
They were a little problematic, was the point. So now they allow anyone who wants to join them for various reasons. They are still very cool, they are still very badass, they are still a pro pirate group, but they are no longer kind of bioessentialist, which is kind of what they were before. And they also no longer have to swear off certain things. So that was one thing that I changed. But Eric, like, what was a big thing that you thought was important to maybe change from prior editions? Considering that I just saw a paragraph from 2E Dragon Blooded book earlier that made me want to die, I totally understand if I would change lots of things.
My brain has been so full of like exigence and Mayface Strangers, and I'm not sure I even remember anything in 8 Directions right now. But I don't know. We tried to patch up things in the whole Linwin Halta situation where they're no longer occupying a third of the creation map, and we're trying to give their conflict a little more nuance and make it a little less the Haltons are the good guys and the Linwins are the Native American coded savage bad guys. That's
that's not good.
We want to go there.
Also for Eric, is it at all possible for Exigence to have cast or aspects?
For who?
exigents to have casts or aspects?
It's possible. The reason they generally don't have casts or aspects is partly because if there's only one of them, that doesn't really make sense.
Right.
And like if there's 5 of them, it still probably doesn't make sense. But even if it did, it's a lot of extra work for the storyteller for a relatively little payoff. But if you want to have a god who has, 10 exigents and they have 3 casts, then sure, go for it. There's no metaphysical reason in the setting why you can't. It's just a lot of effort for generally the little reward.
Yeah, or if like the harvest god marks all of his exigents, so all 12 of his exigents have some distinguishing mark on them, and that's kind of like a cast, but
I got to write that sidebar for exigence, and I was very happy with it. I used the god of love or a god of love as an example of a god who might have aspects, and so a exigence of love might have philia, agape, storge, as their as some of their aspects that they might have, just like the classic sort of Greek expressions of love.
Yeah, totally. I can definitely see that. Fire breathing swan. Any plans for mechanics for playable non-exalts like Dragon Kings? Well, like we said in Exalted Exigence, you'll be able to do a few things with optional exalts, and past that I can't say a lot until things get approved. So maybe we wouldn't be opposed.
I will say it is definitely not, I wouldn't call it a goal, but I definitely would love to see Ochilake and like the Dragon King chosen actually get their due in this edition. Because before they're like, use spirit charms, I guess.
Would you like to address it? I know Vance has some ideas.
Oh yeah.
Vance
who knows whether
ideas?
it's actually going to get developed. We'll see.
Yeah.
I could shake Vance awake in the middle of the night and tell them that, you're in the middle of writing charms, and I would have like 2,000 words before I had even finished the explanation.
Black asks, was it hard to add to the northwest and northeast as it was the southwest and southeast and 3E for across the 8 directions? Was it hard to so was it hard to add to them because they're kind of,
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, the southeast was very easy because you already had the whole Dreaming Sea thing packaged up. Mm-hmm. The southwest, I'd run a playtest campaign there, and that helped inform it. And there was a lot of like stuff marked on the map, and we'd done things before. The northeast was generally Halta and Linawa land before, and it's a big forest, so it was kind of hard to figure out what to do with it. We eventually came up with some ideas about the second contagion that we're exploring, that like gives it its own distinct frontier flavor. And the northwest, was just a blank space through first and second edition. There's just nothing there. So eventually we found a slot for that as sort of, hey, maybe we can use this to explore like horror themed stuff, Junji Ito stuff and Lovecraft stuff, and we've got some ideas.
I can go there and I can find my hole.
Maybe. Well, not.
I like Junji Ito.
We're not drawing that directly. But yeah,
I just want to get turned into a fine paste by a mountain.
Yeah, that's gross. But it's still the smallest chapter in the book, but it's got some cool stuff in it.
Yes, it is gross, but it's Junji Ito, so I had to. Let's see. I can answer this one question, then I'm going to scroll back up. Somebody asked if books going forward will have essence and third material. No. Third edition is still third edition. We are not taking any of their very precious word count to put essence stuff in there. That is the point of Essence and the Essence Companion, and the point of the appendix that lets you convert things. I will say that it's possible we'll have like the occasional, maybe tiny essence stretch goal for a book. Like, the team will convert 100 of the charms or something like that to essence if you really wanted to. But that would be like one stretch goal, because essence charms take up so little room, and that's not even something that we planned out yet. It's just an example for something that we could do, maybe. Just because we have like Exalted Third virtual tabletop products happening with the Essence Kickstarter, and that's meant to be for third and like essence. Like it's meant to be for like mainline third, because we're going to use art from all the books to give you cool little VPT tokens. And that's on purpose. Like, we want Essence to support Third. We don't want Third to support Essence. So if we can help out Third by being like I said, like, here's a little stretch goal, here's a little conversion map for like this Exalt type, here's how these map, whatever, great. But I'm never gonna take away from a Third book or its companion to do that, because that would be really unfair to the fans of Third. And really unfair to the team that worked so hard on it. Like, this is definitely a side rule set and a side project, and that was what it was always meant to be. If it wasn't meant to be that, we might as well just move on to 4th edition, and we're not interested in doing that right now. We're still making 3rd edition books. So, yeah. Let's see. So, Violet, who we all know and love, asks Eric, do you want to live in Great Forks or just visit?
Just visit. I do not want to live in Creation. It's a dangerous, scary place.
What if you were a Solar?
Oof. If I was a Solar, I might still want to live here. There'd be no competition.
True. I'd be amazing if I was an Exalt in the real world. Elliott, what will Exigence have in terms of setting details? Because you've read the book. Unless Eric's only read the setting and you haven't even looked at it, in which case Eric can answer the question. I don't care.
What was the question again? I blanked.
What will Exigence have in terms of setting details? Because like Lunars have their obvious choice, you know, Dragonblood had their obvious choice for setting details. What kind of setting are we doing for Exigence? If any.
Elliott, do you want to answer that one, or should I?
I mean, it's your baby, so.
Yeah, I worked
it's
on
like all of our babies. We're like those people in Creation that have 10 dads.
Well, specifically,
Yeah.
I wrote up Great Forks for Exigence, and it kind of got a little bigger than was outlined. So we've got a nice chunk of Great Forks stuff set aside as like a play space in Exigence.
We also have a little bit. There's some context, at least, for each of the other major Exalted types. Like Sovereigns gives you a little bit of Uluiru. The Puppeteer gives you some of her social context for the location where she is. Architects obviously gives you a little bit about some of the cities.
There's a lot of gods mentioned in the book that have not appeared in 3rd edition, and some of whom are very new to 3rd edition. But you're going to see some old favorites. I wrote about Vanileth. I wrote about Amoth City Smiter. And I wrote about my old pals Fenya and Baz Miklos, the dual language gods. So
would they be a Duolingo?
They would be a Duolingo. They're just a really, really mean owl that threatens you all the time.
It's true.
Buzz Miklos is an owl that's like, I haven't seen you in 48 hours. You know what that means. So someone else asked, now that we know the Gatimians patrons, which we did, you know, reveal, and by we, I mean I, because I was bored.
Agent of Chaos.
I get bored and punchy at like 11 p.m. May I ask, what was the goal when they were created, and if any of them appeared during the Divine Revolution? Do you want to talk a little bit about why the patrons are who they are, Neall and Eric? I'm assuming, possibly Elliott. I don't know, Lauren. Whoever has an opinion.
The reason is fucking around, and the result is finding out.
It's true. So we talked a lot about who they would be, and originally they were just the chosen of Ormus, but then we kept confusing Ormus with Sacheverell, and we were like, wait, actually, those both work. Those both work at all. So we knew a couple things about the Gatimians that were constrained because of the way they're presented in Exalted 3rd edition. We knew they were sealed in a place that was heavily implied to be Zenmu. We know that they predated, or at least were during the Divine Revolution, so they predated the Yozis being sealed away. And you know, we knew that Racanthulio unsealed them, so they were sealed for a reason. They were never deployed as Exalts. And so based on that, we thought about creating new entities as patrons for them, but we also took a good look at their themes, and we're like, you know, they're very similar to what Ormus and Sacheverell are capable of, so don't duplicate entities unnecessarily. We also had to talk about it because you know, there were several members of the team who felt very strongly that if a Yozi's empowering anyone, it should be an Infernal Exalt. You shouldn't have every Yozi making their own different kind of chosen when you have the Infernals right over there. And we kind of sidestepped that because Ormus and Sacheverell weren't Yozis when they made the Getimians. And we're not introducing a huge metaphysical difference. There isn't one, but they are different now than they were then. So,
So
Also-
apparently, according to Vance, you got that backwards, Neil, and it was Seychelles first.
oh, okay.
And also, I will always say Seychelles. So one of the funniest things, and then I will let Eric make his point. When I was revealing them, one of the hints I gave was that I have a friend who has one of these names, and everybody was like, "What the hell friend do you have?" And I do legit have a friend named Seychelles. That is a real name. She goes by Chevy, but that is her name. It's Seychelles. So when Neil was like, "Oh yeah, this is one of the patrons," I'm like, "That's a real person name." Like I know someone named that. It's a real name, but okay. And Eric, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, the other part about Yozis and Infernals and Getimians is that Ormus and Skeveril were kind of freaked out, and so were the rest of the makers of the world about what they had done, and also kind of not happy about the whole being diminished by it thing. So even now, they're not really excited to be like, "Oh, I'm going to make some She Who Lives in Her Name exalts." They twisted around some solar exaltations. That's about as far as they want to go.
Yep.
All right, so I have a couple more questions, and we're gonna shut it down because Eric does literally have to go back to work. I wasn't joking about that. His job is a nightmare. Give
Don't
us more
say it so my
Kickstarter.
bosses can hear.
Shh, give us more Kickstarter money so we can hire Eric full time. So last two quick questions. Black asks again, is Zenmu the only other realm in 3E, or are there going to be more hints of beyond, like the Scorpion Empire, etc.?
I mean, it's a vast cosmos. There's other stuff around, but by and large, it's not really relevant to stuff that's happening in creation, which is where we want to focus. So yeah, maybe that'll turn out to be some other subdimension somewhere where some weird thing creeps out of, and that could be a story hook, but it's not going to be like a big setting shaking thing that you have to include in your campaign.
Or it could be something you put on the Storyteller's fault. Do whatever you want.
And people are thirsty for the Scorpion Empire.
Last question, and this is only if you feel like making a great revelation, apparently, Eric and Elliott. What were Heart Eaters called before their inversion? Who were they?
Can we say?
Yeah,
Go
it's
for
a
it.
con, man.
It's
Go
a
nuts.
con. We don't care. Go for it.
There's no rules.
They were the Aurorals.
Expand.
No, that's all you get.
Is it Aurorals or Aurorans? I can't
Aurorans. Sorry.
I like Aurorals because it sounds like rural Durham.
Aurorans. So they
Who
were
are the Aurorans? Are they the acolytes of She-Ra? I don't know.
No, they were the chosen of an Aurora god named Aurora, whose most common sobriquet was the Lord of Delights.
Vance said it is Aurorals. Rural Auroral.
The Aurora Aurorans. So they were very much like inspirational figures. They were kind of shepherds of the hearts of the Exalted host, and their patron got badly ganked. And the end result that you get is the Heart Eaters, who have been just completely twisted from people who bring inspiration and peace and, into people who are ravenously hungry for recognition and attention in some really nasty ways.
I love that. All right, let's wrap it up and go around, and we can tell people who you are, where to find you, and if you have one final last thing you want to say or spoiler you want to give, because Lauren, you never answered your adversary's question. We should definitely go over that. So, Lauren, who are you?
All right.
Find you, follow you.
I'm Lauren Roy. You can find me mostly on Twitter as @FalconS with an ESSE at the end. Anybody else? Probably not me. And so one of the cool adversaries is Unrelenting Atom, who is an elemental whose elemental siblings all died years and years ago, and basically decided or figured that the world was ending, that everything had to be over, it's going to happen any minute now, and retreated underground, where he still to this day lives with his cult of people who also think they're going to survive the apocalypse with him down beneath the earth, and
I love it.
he's waiting for everything to end, and it hasn't happened yet, and you can't convince him that it's not gonna.
I love that.
It's
All
what he's really like. He's almost this tragic character, and that's what I loved about him. Was it was like reading it when I'm trying to remember who it was that wrote it, but when they submitted it, I was like, oh, I just want to give him a hug, but then he would probably crush me in it.
Those are all the best bad guys, though, are the ones that like you actually are kind of like, should I hurt him because he seems kind of sad.
Yeah.
Bad guy versus sad guy.
Yeah. Neal, where do people find you, follow you? And I know you love spoiling things at cons, so feel free to throw a spoiler out there.
true.
Preferably one that's going to come true like during Charms Week, but
Sure. Oh geez. No, if I was gonna spoil something, I would spoil like the patron of the spoken or something. But nobody actually asked that, so I won't do that one.
all right.
Tell me.
Hey Neil, who's the patron of the spoken?
You don't get to ask questions.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to help.
I'm waiting for the chat. I'm like staring at the chat like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
You
Well,
have
nobody
one job,
asked it.
chat.
Okay. No, you can find me at Burnt Neal on Twitter, and you can keep pledging to the Essence Kickstarter to make me develop more things.
I thought you didn't want to develop things anymore.
I will make an exception for Exalted.
Apparently, who is the patron of the spoken is now the most asked question in chat.
Can we talk about this?
Eric,
Is it
do you
cool?
care?
Eric, do you care?
I'll allow it.
All right. So the patron of the spoken was a currently, this could change, was a Incarna who did not participate in the Divine Revolution and was sort of exiled from Yushan after the gods won to the Great Western Ocean, where he grew bitter and angry about it. And the spoken were an undersea race that had already existed down there, and they quested for the secret of exaltation and presented it to their patron, Neptune, who used the exaltation to empower the spoken, but they did not tell him of its terrible price. And so he, poof.
You're
Now
like,
he's
terrible
just,
price on here. His name
now
is
he's just
Neal.
a voice on the waves.
I like that Neil didn't hear that, but everybody else did.
Oh, wow.
I said there's a terrible price. His name is Neal.
Yes.
Elliott, if people want to talk to you on the internet or find you or perceive you slightly, where can they do so?
So I can usually be perceived either on the fan cord or I'm on Twitter at Elliott M. Freeman because I'm super creative. And as for spoilers, I don't know. I can't follow Neptune with something like that. I will say there's been a lot of discourse today about Glorious Solar Saber.
Which is awesome.
And I tell you what, if you are a fan of Glorious Solar Sabers, I think you're going to really like the Sovereigns. Because when they were pitched to me, it was, hey, Elliott, would you like to write about a family of super-powered gem exalts who summon weapons and armor of auroral flame? And I was like, yeah, no, I think I would. Also, have you been reading my diary?
Also, if
You don't have to add the flying rainbow horses, Elliott.
Vance cut the flying rainbow horses.
Oh no!
Yep.
Vance cut Rainbow Bright's horse.
And I think
Vance
Vance is about to get cut.
Vance cut Swiftwind.
Wait, is that
Vance cut the one unicorn from Adventure Time? Vance, don't eat them! Vance, I'm so upset right now. Anyway.
There we go.
Eric, people find you, follow you. It doesn't have to be a spoiler. I said spoiler or thing you really like, but Elliott chose spoiler, so.
Well, if everyone else is going to spoil, I have to spoil. It's just the rules. I can't do anything about it. I don't have too much of a web presence. I'm generally available on the fan Discord or the official White Wolf, not White Wolf, Onyx Path. It's been a long
I'm going to say, White Wolf doesn't even exist. It's Paradox. Like,
I
what are you
know.
talking about?
The official Onyx Path Exalted forums under my own name. People have been asking for a while about the third circle demon who's going to appear in 100 Devils Night Parade, so I might as well say that her name is Sibri, the Rampart of Serpents, who is a third circle demon under the Ebon Dragon.
Ooh.
That is pleasing to the Ebon Dragon, from what I understand, as a meme. You can find me almost everywhere at Dixie Cyanide on social media. You can find me. I forgot what my name is right now on the Exalted fan board because I change it all the time. You can find me at Cyanide on the Onyx Path Discord though, and also banning people who annoy me. Because that's who I am as a person. I don't have any spoilers because I literally cannot keep book information in my head. So I will just like literally when I was like, can I spoil the Gatemians patron? I walked over to Neall and I was like, who are the Gatemian patrons? And then he told me and I was like, I'm going to spoil it.
No, you didn't. You waited until I was asleep.
Oh, no, I asked Monica. I did ask Monica. You were asleep.
The ultimate mommy daddy.
No, you were asleep, and I was like, Neal's gonna be so pissed when he wakes up.
I was.
I like being the center of attention. I'm an only child and an Aries. Leave me alone. But thank you all for showing up. Madova, your question's too late. I can't tell you that. You can make an Exalted of 5 Days Darkness though if you really want to. Like, I'm not gonna stop you. Either way, thank you all for showing up. Thank you for having Exalted with us. The Kickstarter for Essence is still going on. There will be a Kickstarter in the future for Exigence. We are trying to put some more books out as fast as possible, I promise. Not all of them will be Kickstarted, so don't worry about like, oh, I won't be able to get that one because it's not on Kickstarter. Or, like, it won't be Kickstarter for 2 years. Like, we didn't Kickstart the Realm. We're not going to Kickstart every single Exalted book. That would be ridiculous. But thank you all for joining us, and thank you, panelists, for joining me.
You.
Thank you.
With that, Tech can get it.